What's up? I'm Michael, and today I'm going to be showing you how to do several things to get started drawing. I've left this up here. This is a study. Now, a study is when you draw something to learn how to draw it, to learn the anatomy of something, to learn stuff like that. It does not have to be a finished drawing. It can just be a sketch of some sort or something. And that's what this is. It's just a layout idea, basically. And I wanted to show this because it has several things that you might want to look at if you're going to start drawing. Every drawing is nothing but lines and shapes thrown together to make something look like something else. The shadows and stuff, the shading and things, they're just tones or values laid down in a value goes from basically a very light, almost, I guess you could say it goes all the way from white to black on the grayscale. But you have most of the time a very light gray all the way up to a very dark gray, especially working with pencil. For your brightest values, your lightest values, you can just use the tone of the paper if you want to sometimes. You're hardly ever, unless it's a highlight in the eye, you're hardly ever going to have a solid white place, and most of the time you're not actually going to have a perfectly black area as well. Now, for this little tutorial, I am going to be using charcoal pencils. I have a little $3 set that I'm using from Walmart. It is a Daler-Rowney set, and it's called Simply Charcoal. I've got this set to manual focus, so it may be out of focus when I hold these up. But this is soft, medium, and then there is a hard one in the set. This is extra hard, and this is a Generals. I prefer Generals over the Daler-Rowney any day. Generals makes good charcoal pencils as well as Derwent, so if you want to use charcoal, that's a great thing. But for getting started, you can get, I suggest two things. If you want to learn how to draw inexpensively with charcoal, buy yourself pads of newsprint and charcoal pencils. If you also might want to get a little bit of compressed charcoal. If you want to go with graphite, there is absolutely no reason to not just use notebook paper to learn to draw. Notebook paper has lines on it, and those lines can be connected to make grids and squares very easily, and it is a great learning tool. I don't care who they are. If somebody tells you don't draw on notebook paper because you don't know what you're doing with it, they do not understand how great of a tool notebook paper is. If you're going to do a finished drawing or something, or you really want to show your work off, definitely get a sketchbook. The most inexpensive to me, though, is charcoal and newsprint. And if you have a way, stand it up, like I have here at the easel. Now, I'm going to show you a few different things. Shapes, basically. Circles connected with lines create a lot of body parts. There's a lot of things that are bean shaped as well. If you look at this, this is a bean shape almost. And a lot of drawing has bean shapes. There's circles. There's a lot of triangular markings. Triangular here. An interesting thing, triangular markings in art makes it more interesting to the eye and the mind naturally. So throw in triangles. Another thing I'm going to show you is a brief introduction to how I do semi-realistic hair, just enough to say, okay, this is the hair, this is the flow of it. So I want to show that. But also, besides just the shapes, you see there's a little bit of a darker line around certain areas, or darker areas, and this is shading, and this is called hatching or cross hatching, or just simply laying down a shade. And I'm going to show you how to do all of it, and let's get started. The first paper I'm going to throw up here, I've got my papers over to the side. The first one I'm going to do, I'm simply going to show you some shapes and stuff like that. Let's throw it up here like this. And I want to have that little rubber band thing across the bottom of it. There we go. I'm just clipping it up there so it holds it up. That rubber band, it's actually held up. It's bigger than the board, so it's held up on either side by binder clips. You can use your imagination with binder clips and bulldog clips. You can about do anything. So the other tools we're going to be using besides the 3 pencils. Now, let me explain your pencils first. Hard is going to be your lighter pencils. Medium is a little bit darker than hard, and then dark or soft is going to be your darkest. So depending on the brand of pencil, it's going to depend on if it says light, medium, dark, or hard, medium, soft. So soft is dark and hard is lighter. It's very, very important to remember that. Also, I prefer to draw with a harder pencil or the medium pencil, and then go in, and I like to lay down my base tones with the harder pencil, go back over that slightly with the medium pencil, and then go back with the soft pencil strictly for my darkest areas. Another thing, if you're going to be using charcoal, go in and find you a white charcoal pencil. You can get them at any arts and crafts stores, I believe, and usually General's is the best from what I have seen. And everybody, if they're using white charcoal pencil, it's a General's. So try to find you one of those too if you want to do that. We're also using a blending stump. I have one end for my dark and one end for my white, which I will not be using white in this video. But you also need a kneaded eraser. So I've got these laying down here, and I am ready to go. I suggest if you have multiple pencils that look the same, lay them in different spots so you don't have to look at them each time you go to pick them up. You'll automatically know by where they are laying which grade they are, which softness they are. So, to draw, let's fix this just a little bit. Okay, to draw, there's a simple thing you do. You make a line, okay? We'll make it a little darker because I can't see it. Okay, I see what it is. Let me zoom out slightly so that you can see this. There we go. Okay. So, okay, you put your mark down. Now, alright, what can you do with this? Okay, well, some people will go in and they'll say stick person. Okay, it's very simple to go from stick person to bubble person. Alright? Bubble person. Alright? Ooh. We're going to add him some hands. And it is a very simple shape version of a person. In painting, this may be all you actually need. In a painting, you might go in and you might have a bridge, okay? And you have a person going over the bridge. And you want to put that person on there. Okay? Now, this is a circle sitting on top of a triangle. On that bridge, that represents your person. And it's far away. It is a perfect person on your bridge. Don't ever let somebody tell you that stick people, or as I call them, bubble people, are not art. Okay? Now, once you get past that point here, say you want to have something that actually looks like a shape, a three-dimensional shape. So the first thing in three-dimensional shapes is to know that there are different sides. So first off, I'm going to show you how to do something. If you want to draw a circle, you have a ruler, but that's all you have, is you just have a ruler. We're going to do it right here. We're going to go 1 inch. And okay, there we go. Let me see if I can get this a little bit better. Okay. Now, all I'm doing is I'm making an inch square. Okay. Let me move this back slightly. Okay. Now, but that's not a circle. Okay. Well, I'm going to find my midpoints, roughly estimate my midpoints on this. That's still not a circle. Okay. Doesn't have to be perfect. It's just a circular shape. And this is more of a four-sided shape with curved edges, but that is technically a circular shape. Okay. There's nothing wrong with, if you can't draw a circle freehand, doing it like that. If you can do this, that's perfectly fine as well. Now, how do I turn this into three-dimensional? Alright, you want to define where the light is coming from. We're going to say on both of these, the light is coming in right here. Okay? So it's going to come in and just say it's hitting. You don't do this now. Don't just mark down where it's actually hitting like I just did. I'm just showing you where it's hitting on these. Say it's hitting right here on both of these. Okay? So that means if it's hitting here, this is going to have a shadow, or you could have a shadow slightly different, but it's going to be something like so. Now, usually right along that little equator, or that little mark in the middle, that's going to be your darkest shadows. Let me start on this one. And all I'm doing with this one is drawing in straight lines. Okay, that is hatching. When I come back and I add that second line, that is cross hatching. And this gives you tone, it gives you value. Now, up here, I'm going to hatch the top area without cross hatching. I'm actually going to come back and add in even more cross hatching on this bottom area though. And you see how that area is now a lot darker than that, but our highlight is still there. So with this one over here though, I'm going to show you how to use your pencil to lay in shading instead of hatching. So you kind of want to just lay your pencil on the side, and you want to go with the contour. And you just want to go with the contour of it. Now, what I'm going to do is go ahead, I'm going to pull out my next pencil, and I'm going to darken this whole area here up with the medium charcoal. I'm going to come right back here. Okay. Now, you don't have to have all of that in the back. I'm just going to use it to show you something. But now, just with my lightest one, or the hard one, just going to throw in a little bit of hatching, and we're going to blend this out with our stump. So, with the stump, the best way, if you can do it, if you've got the room, is to lay it on the side and make circular motions. And then we're going to come down here. We're going to get that. You always, when you're blending, you kind of want to go from your lightest areas to your next darkest and into the darkest when you're blending if you can. And that way you don't have to go into you don't have to clean your blending stump. Now, if you want to clean your blending stump, let me show you something great. The best way to clean a blending stump, take your kneaded eraser, take your blending stump, push it in there, and people peel off their blending stumps, they sharpen them down. There's nothing on that that's going to come off on your paper now. It's not going to do it. So it's all in your eraser, and then you can just knead up your eraser. There's another thing you can do as well. Take an old pair of blue jeans and scrub it on blue jeans. That's how you clean erasers. If you have an old pair of blue jeans that you can't wear anymore, that they've fallen apart or whatever, cut them up into little squares, about 3 by 3 inches or something, and use them for your art. They are great tools. Now, we're going to shade this one up here. We're going to blend it as well. Again, in the lighter area first. So we're getting rid of our hatching, but we laid it down as hatching. And you can see it blends out almost the same. And then we got that. Now, what you can do, you see this is not as dark, so what I can do is I can come right back here and I can follow that contour line. I put in just a little bit more along it, and now I'm just going to go right back over top of that And that makes it a little bit darker right there than the rest of it. And we're going to blend it down into that. Now, okay, yes, Michael, that's somewhat of a three-dimensional shape. Yes, it is. What, however, would make it look even more three-dimensional? And that is the shadow. Okay, this is a ball shape. So the shadow is going to be sort of an ovalish, ballish look behind it. Again, hatching with this one, and we're just going to hatch. We're not going to cross hatch. And then this one, I'm just going to go in and lightly shade in with circles. Just like you would lay down color pencil, you just go in and shade it with circles, tiny little circles. And now I can go right back here and I can shade that. Come over here and I can shade this. That's the beauty of working on charcoal. With charcoal on newsprint, it is just so easy to shade. It is so easy to blend. You have your light source, and you now have two balls right here. Well, Michael, there's a box around that darn ball. Yes, there's a box. Need an eraser. You can shape it however you need to. And there you go. You no longer have a box exactly around it. So now you can take your little Pokeball here and go catch yourself a Pokemon if you want. You can about pick it up off the paper. So what about other shapes? What kind of other shapes? What would they look like in 3 dimensions? Okay, so you have your squares. Okay. Your squares or your rectangles. Alright, so to make this 3-dimensional, you'll come here, and what you want to do is you want to say, okay, I'm not going to have this line be exactly the same as this line. So if the front is here, then this line is going to be slightly different. Okay. And this line is going to cut back as well. Now, this is a straight-on look at this side and this side here. You can't really see much of the top. If you could, if it was a downward view, it might look more like say we're going for a downward view on this. The same thing where you got your box here. You don't want to take it out too far like I did there. So you just erase that little part. Now, I can come right back in here. Again, with all of these examples, the light is coming in this way. So the light would be hitting here. This side is going to be completely in darkness. So we're going to crosshatch. And we're going to crosshatch it 4 different ways to get the darkest tone. Okay. This side, we're going to crosshatch like so. And then if it's coming here, then you're going to have your shadow back here, sort of. This doesn't have to be quite so tall. It would probably be more long than tall, so about like this instead. And we can just take our kneaded eraser and come right in here and delete, erase or delete, however you want to do it. If you're doing this digitally, then you can just delete it. Now, there you go. You've got your box there. I am going to say, where this meets the ground, you actually want to have that darker so you can actually see it. Now, I'm not the most perfect drawer in the world. I don't draw perfectly by any means. This one up here, those edges and that part back there, they're definitely, they need to be defined where you can see them a little bit better. They need to be a little bit darker because of the shading, the way that the shadow hits it, the light hits it and creates shadow. So light's coming in here. Okay, and say it's hitting right here, so this gonna be more like this. Okay, you see it's almost a triangular shape compared to this. In fact, to this one line, it is a triangular shape. And I'm going to go right in there. Now I'm doing exactly what I told you not to do, shading the darker parts first, so don't do that. Go on and shade your lighter parts first. But there we go. So your light's hitting directly on that corner. So you have three-dimensional shapes there. You have three-dimensional shapes here. Now, another thing you can have, draw a circle, draw two lines, and a half circle at the bottom. Okay, Michael, that's a trash can. Just go ahead, throw it away. Yeah, this is a cylinder. It's another shape. Now, how did I draw it? Circle, line, line, half circle. And it created that. Now, I'll tell you, this shape, and this shape, these are going to be the main shapes that you use in art. Okay? Again, light hitting here. Let me show you a quick way to make a curve also in your shadow. You cross hatch, but on the end where you want that light to be, you leave that somewhat different. Such as right here, you can see I'm going to go this way, but I leave that little area. Now, because this side is actually completely away from it, I'm also going to pull this down this way to make more of a, what they call a hard edge or hard shadow. If you want to know more about shading and shadows, there are some great tutorials on YouTube. This is just the basic stuff. So, and this is because I was asked to show this kind of stuff. So, there you go. There's you a cylinder. And what we're going to do is actually, we're going to use the blending stump, what the charcoal that's on it, to actually go on and blend that a little bit. And we're going to come back bit darker and put that a little bit darker in to make it look more realistic. Okay, now that light's hitting it that way, right there, so line, line. Now notice the lines, downward and slightly upward. This is called perspective. You need to learn perspective if you're going to be drawing. Absolutely imperative to learn perspective, anatomy, and stuff like that. There you go. Now your cylinder is, it has a shadow. Now, just let me show you something else here. Cylinder laying down facing you. Circle, line, line, half circle, semicircle. It's not a perfect cylinder, and it's not a perfect drawing, but it's a representation of what you can do. So just to show how it might look without having to actually shade or blend, there you go. And then say it's hitting here, so you have it coming out straight. You know, alright, I put a semicircle here for this one. This one is coming out straight, and okay, that makes it look like a bread box that's opened almost. But if the light is hitting here, then this is actually going to be, it might come out a little bit further. And you need to do this in perspective as well. So okay, if your round edges, your circular part is not the part that's being hit. The straight line or the straight edge is what's being hit with your shadow. Then right here, now this actually, I did mess up on this, and I'm going to show you exactly what I've done wrong. I put this at the bottom, and it should not be quite all the way to the bottom. And let me just come in here and show you. Now, this is a more accurate representation because you want to go slightly up above that. You never want your shadow, if it's coming directly at it here, you don't want your shadow to ever be at that bottom, or under that bottom, because that is not going to accurately represent it. And this one up here, now that I look at it, it actually, I knew something was off about it, so it didn't go all the way up is what I had done wrong. I had taken it all the way up. So now you can see the light hits it here, and I'm going for the bottom, not the top of it. So the shadow should align with the bottom of it. That top is not going, unless it's going at an angle down, it's not, you're not going to see it. So now, what if your cylinder is on the side? Well, you draw, say it's perfectly facing you, the side of it. You want to draw a half circle over here, and a half circle over here. Okay? And connect them. Alright? And sometimes charcoal doesn't like to sketch out properly, so sometimes you have to press a little harder. But, alright, our light is hitting here, so let's just say, and now we can shade the rest of this. But that bottom is going to get more of that shadow. Okay. And then this is just going to be a very, very short shadow just going straight out to the side. Okay. And shade that in. So now we have circle into a sphere, a square or a rectangle into a box, circle and two lines into a cylinder. Three different ways of looking at it. Let me show you a box from a different way as well. You have the front of your box here. Something about this side of the paper is much better for drawing than this side of the paper. No idea why. It's crazy. So you can see I've got this here, and now I'm going to make marks going up like so and put a back on it. And now I'm just sort of indicating where my light is hitting it, and you can go in and do multiple levels of shading if you want to make it look however you want. Now with this, this might actually come out a little bit more like this, and then I'm trying to figure out how it would go back up in there. I think it would be like that. We'll go for it like that and just see how it looks once we shade it. I don't think it's going to be exactly like that, but it's an idea of what it would do. If it's coming in this way, I think what we need to do is actually bring this, say it's actually hitting about right here, so bring it up like that maybe. I'm thinking it might go back there. Don't quote me on this one. I'm just trying to figure out how that would look. So if you don't know though, go try to find it online and figure out how it looks. Like I really don't know how the shadow would lay on that one, hitting from that corner going back there. It's not popping in my head. I think it would be more like this maybe. And I think that this is actually going to be more flat. Now again, like I said, don't quote me on this one because I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's slightly going to be down, and this edge might even cut off a little bit into a square. So your shapes and all of that, your shadows, they really depend on you looking at references and seeing exactly how they look. If you, like, I've never seen a box being hit from that direction, so I don't know exactly how it would look. But this is pretty much how they're going to look. I'm almost thinking this might need to go up a little bit differently, so we're just going to scratch that one, but I wanted to show you the perspective on this box anyway. So, the last shape I'm going to show you is a triangle. And triangles definitely are a big part of artwork. So, simple 3 shapes. Okay? Triangles can be used for all kind of stuff. So, you make a pyramid shape. I know there's a specific name for this, but instead of being called pyramid shape, so don't shoot the messenger, but this is the first little bit I'm going to show you. The light's coming in here. This side is totally going to be shaded out in shadow. So it's going to hit about right here, and because of that, we're going to have a shadow that comes down, I think, that if it's hitting here, the shadow's going to come out with it. It's probably going to come out actually along this edge. I want to define so you can differentiate between the shadow down here and the actual side. So that shadow is probably going to come out like that, because you got to think, where is the base point back here? And it's going to be, you can actually draw it in. There we go. So that shadows, it should be right along there, where I'm making it darker now. And that top, see if we can pull that out right quick. I'm getting that down to a blade. And I'm just going to lightly go over and lift out that part that I don't want. So there you go. There's your pyramid. And again, these lines I put in there, they are construction lines showing the construction of the pyramid on the other side. For the box, okay, you see how the box does that. These are just construction lines. It's never, ever a bad thing to draw a construction line to get the shape in your head. So that is basic shapes. From these shapes, you can put a box with a triangle and a circle. And let me show you right here. You've got your box. Okay. You got your triangle. Alright. You got your circle. Alright, what is this? You got a cylinder or an oval. And so now you have a fist. You can construct, it's not the best fist in the world, but with shapes, you can construct stuff. Let me show you another shape right quick. You take a circle and another circle, and you connect them. At the back, you connect it away from it. On the front, connect it going into it. So the front and the back are going to be actually swooping the same way. And it doesn't matter if the bottom is bigger and the top is smaller, or they're both the same. I call it the bean shape. If you look at it, it's a footprint. It's also a bean. It is also the shape of 90% of cartoon bodies. Just say circle, circle, another circle. We've got two lines, a circle, two lines, a circle, two lines, circle, circle, box, box, squares, and squigglies. And you have yourself, oh, wait, triangle, cylinder, triangle. You have yourself a cartoon rat. He's not the cutest rat, but he's a cartoon rat. It just shows you how you can construct with just shapes. Just construct. I could go back in and use this construction and define a very large version of this, a much more detailed version of this. Using these shapes with shading, you can draw anything. With shading, okay, so he is now shaded. Okay, we're going to come down here and shade around the bottom just a little bit to say, okay, yeah. He is now a three-dimensional bubble figure cartoon rat. Very simple to do. And this is my introductory to drawing. I did promise I would do hair, so we're going to jump right on into that. Again, right quick, let me actually take a picture of this. Now what we're going to do is we're going to switch out paper, and we are going to do a very quick hair or drawing, head drawing with hair, to show the way that this works. I'm actually going to redraw that mermaid's head. And we're going to do something that we just done. We're going to start with a circle, and then we're going to shape it down like that. We're going to come back in with just a line, and now we have a base for our head. Just going to define that front edge a little bit, and I'm going to say the head is facing this way, so right along here should be the ear. Now the ear lies basically the bottom of your ear usually aligns with the corner of your mouth, or maybe just slightly at the top of your mouth, and the top of your ear aligns right usually either at the top of your eye, the top of your eyelid, or at your brow. So we're just going to throw in an ear shape right here. And again, top about the mouth area, top of the brow. Just go with it like that. You don't have to put all this detail into it at all. In fact, you should sort of, from the back or the side, it should look like a half bean almost. Now, I'm going to go ahead and round that out just a little bit. Just try to get the shape a little bit better of the back of the skull. Now, you're not going to see this though. So, we're going to give her flowing hair in water, basically. And like I said, this is the mermaid. I don't want to make it bigger than this because I don't want to be drawing and like use up all my pencil or whatever with this. But shapes. So, you can say the hair's probably going to come down about right here. And it's still going to be growing still down on the back of the neck about right here for most people, or you might cut it off right there at the base of the skull. It really depends. Let's go ahead and say that the base of the skull is the bottom, so we're just going to put in some lines here just to depict that it's like it's coming down from the base of the skull up there. Alright, so this line depicts that it's going up across the side of the head. Well, you don't want it directly on the skull. That's not going to look right to have it coming directly off that skull, like so. Maybe a flame. Okay, so you've got a little flame on your head there, ma'am. You don't want that. You do kind of want that flame flow, but you want volume. Think of women and how women like volume in their hair. So that is why I'm sort of coming down a little bit and I'm making a shape. Okay. Okay. Making a shape. Now, people have extra hair coming out the back of their neck usually, and it might look like anything. Just have a shape. The other side of her hair, there might be a little bit more. Okay, there might be some flowing out this way as well. Alright, so, okay, well, we have shapes in there now. Okay, what I'm going to do is say, I don't want the skull to really show. I don't want the contour of the skull itself to show up through my hair. So I am going to gently erase what I can, where I can still see it before I put it down, and then I can go from here. Now, the first thing, we're going to do this with a pencil and blending stump. If you have a very soft paintbrush, very, very soft paintbrush, you can blend hair with that as well. They're actually not a bad thing to do. Let me see if I can zoom in directly on this head before we go. Oops. Not that far. Alright. I would say tell me if it was in frame, but you're not here to tell me. So, we're going to lightly stroke in the direction that the hair is flowing, tone. Slightly, just barely leaving a little bit of the color of the paper. Now, if it's white, you don't want a lot of that white in there. Since newsprint is a grayish to yellowish, usually it goes between gray, brown, and yellowish, to be honest with you. It's very forgiving to just go on and let that be part of your tone as well. So, just with the flow. Now what I'm doing here is I'm trying to figure out exactly how the hair is going to flow. Now you can come in and say, hey, there's a lock here. There's a bit here, and you can put in shapes. But at this point in the thing, I just like to put the outline. If there's an area, you don't want to do this to where you have your flowing hair and say, okay, well, the light's hitting it here. I see so many people do this for manga and stuff, and then they just make the rest of it just black, or they put in their lines in the wrong direction, and it just does not look right. That might be acceptable for some manga here and there or something, but if you want hair to look semi-realistic, I'm not going to say my hair is the best hair in the world. It's just, you know, it's hair. I like it to look like hair. So I want it to represent my vision. So I'm just going in, adding in tone in little strokes and lines, varying the pressure slightly. Now you might notice I'm going very slow compared to what I might do if I was just shading in, like so. So you don't want to go too fast because you want the control. If you go too fast, you lose all control over your pencil. And I will give you an example of that again, another one in just a second. But I see it flowing in this way. And as you go through, where you make lighter marks and then you make a few darker marks, it sort of defines the contour and the flow of the hair itself. So and don't worry about connecting, oh, I done this part here, it has to line up perfectly with the next stroke. With this first level, you don't have to worry about anything like that at all. You just come right on in here, and you just lay it down. Lay down your tone. Lay down your value and the flow. The direction of the flow. So like right here, I want it to curve. And then I want it to curve back again. Now I like to go in one direction, and I want to definitely separate the two parts of hair. So I am putting a darker line there. And you'll see how I go back and do that later. But again, a darker line where it overlaps, and then now I'm going to draw another little bit of hair coming out here. I'm going to show you something. Going too fast, you lose control. You don't want to do that. I lost control. I went way too fast. I went way too dark in there. So, okay. And let's actually pull this back out here this way. Now, the next step, I am going to clean my blender. Let me see. Let me make sure that this is focused. Alright, we should be focused. Clean my blender in the eraser. And now, with the flow of the hair, I'm not going against the flow. If you're a woodworker, you don't go against the grain. You want to go with the flow. I'm lightly, ever so lightly, just barely touching, going in and dragging that, smudging it just a little, so that, not really smudging, but blending, so that I get more tone on the paper. I want that base tone for my paper. I see so many people say, oh, you can smudge with your fingers. Okay, you have oils and you actually have an acidic, little bit of acid in your skin. People think that you don't. A lot of people will say that you don't. But if I was to blend this, the paper where I have the oils is going to change, and it can actually eat the medium you're working with, depending on what it is, and the acid that's on your skin, the slight acidity or whatever it's called. I don't think acidity is a word, actually. What is the word? The slight bit of acid that you have can help eat away at that, the oils and stuff. So, again, just ever so slightly dragging that along the paper. Now, one thing, it will dull out anything you have put down. So, you see how in this area I went a little bit harder, and it's making it much smoother. I don't exactly want that all over because I want that texture still in there, but sometimes in certain areas it's acceptable. Depending on the look you're going for that area, depends on how hard you need to press with it. So let's do that, and let's come back and do this one again. Alright, so that is the base of the hair. Now, we can define where we want to shadow it, and again, coming in this way, let's say that we want the shadow to hit about right here. Not shadow, the light to hit and what I'm going to do is very lightly go back over that. Just very lightly. I want it to add it in slightly, but now I'm going to go right back over that, and I can still see it with my eye where I put that little highlight in. Even though I just blended it back out, I can still see where that highlight is. Now, the next part is to go to your next darkest pencil, which for me is medium. and start throwing in some tufts, some shapes with it. What we want to do is come down here. This come out this way, and actually, okay. Now this is where you want to sort of make sure that you connect in some way if you really want to. And then you have darker areas and then you have lighter areas. The lighter you press, it might take a few times stroking across it. The lighter you press, though, the lighter it's going to be, and you can get a nice gradation that way. The bottom here, this whole area is going to be a little bit darker, so we're going to darken that up, and not quite as dark right there as it is right here. Now you're not seeing as much of the strokes in this way, but I'm definitely making certain areas a little bit darker. I'm going to come right along this bottom though and darken up that bottom really nicely all the way out. Pretty much the whole head is going to be a little bit darker, so let me go ahead and just start laying that in. The whole side of the head over here. Now, one thing you want to do, if you're not using a reference, make little daggers coming out of it. Not daggers, but longer areas and a little bit darker areas. Okay. If the light was coming from under, these shadows would be on the top of the hair. If the light is coming directly down, they're all on the bottom. This light's coming down this way, so wherever I want there to be a highlight, I'm going to put sort of up under it, a little bit darker, and then right on top of it, you have to think of it this way. Each tuft of hair, so this is a tuft, you can see it kind of comes here. This middle is going to be the brightest because at the top it has that other sort of overlaying onto it most of the time. The way I have this part is actually coming down over this part, and this part is sort of up under there flowing, and it's, to me, that's the part that's coming back out there. And then this part is up under the rest of this hair here, and that's what's flowing out there. Now, what we're going to do is say, maybe this part here, this longer one is the one that's shooting down here. This one is the one that's going straight out here. So, you have to look at where the highlight is hitting, and where the light is coming in at to hit. And you have to say, okay, well, this is so-and-so. And you want to make the bottom, go to your line, like your line here, and you want to work up from that line, just slightly up, instead of working down. And the reason you want to do that up is because that bottom of that tuft is going to have less light hitting it. So I'm just defining my shapes as I go. Again, the bottom. Okay. Now, from here, you can go through and redefine this however you want, but for the sake of time, I'm going to go back in. I'm not going to blend it again. A lot of people they'll put in strokes, they'll blend it. They'll put in strokes, they'll blend it over and over and over. It's unnecessary to do that if you're just doing a quick sketch or something, and you want realistic texture on your hair for a sketch. So now I'm just going to go back, and this is my darkest pencil, my soft or dark, and I'm just going to add in at the bottoms of these down here a dark line. In the darker areas, the shades, the lines, I want to sort of in the middle of those, I want to have the darkest tones, the darkest values. The reason for that is that that is the darkest place. If you look at somebody's hair where the like I had said, where it's overlapping and stuff, you need to find where the light is hitting, find the darkest place. And that's how I like to make certain areas look a little bit darker than others. And we're going to work on the bottom first. So this whole area, like I had said before, this whole area is going to be a little bit darker than the other. So I'm going to go ahead and put in a few darker lines right here, all the way up, because I really want that to reflect that, and to have, I want this to have, you can see I've started adding sort of shapes in there, extra little lines, and it's creating a texture to the hair. Now, where the hair connects to the head, if you've noticed, I'm sort of making a sideways V shape and then pulling out from that. We'll go right here, sideways V, and pull out from that. And what that's doing, it's making it look like there's a tuft of hair and it is connecting at some point. So we're going to pull that there. Pull that there. Now, you don't want to pull these just like completely overdo everything. You might have a little bit here, but this not look like it, and then this right here have a little bit in it. You want to make your darker look more natural than the rest of it. More flow. So you want to get your flow right the darker you go. And I'm going to come back in here with the other and just sort of add in a little more tone, because it didn't quite look dark enough to me. So here, just throw in a little bit darker here. Now, when you have a tuft of hair, to me, it is always better to have multiple lines going through it than just to draw a shape and darken just around the edges. You want to have multiple dark lines going through it, and it gives it the illusion of being more realistic. So now, like down here, we're going to go like so, and just give it a few dark spots. If you ever slightly mess up the direction, you can easily go in and blend it if you need to. Like right here, I sort of want to blend that. I sort of want to blend that out just a little bit. But let's look at the top of the head up here now. I'm going back with my medium, and I'm going to darken up right here a little bit more, because I want to pull another shadow out here. And you can pull out a highlight, but I say you pull out the shadow as you work. You're building up the shadow, so I'm saying you're pulling it out of the pencil onto. Okay. And now this is where our highlight is. So definitely building up that shadow along that edge. Build up that shadow along that edge to show that highlighted area. You can go back over this if you need to with a white charcoal and add in a few tiny white spots or something. Let's change the flow of this one. So you can see now right here, this needs to be a lot darker, if you ask me. So I darkened that up. I can go back in now with my dark and add in a few more little areas. Okay, I'm going to darken this up slightly. Now let me show you a quick thing you can do with a tuft of hair. Okay, you've got this like so. Say your highlight's going to be right here. Okay. You see how I skipped that? I'm going on down here. Now, when I blend this, now this is just a quick one, but I'm blending that, and then I'm going to come up here and blend over that without any graphite actually being there, or any charcoal or graphite being there. And that gives me a natural little highlight area. I can come back in if I want to and actually take a little of it out with my eraser. Say there was another highlight right here. As you can see, I don't know if you can see it that well on the camera, but let me make sure it's actually on there. Yeah. So I'm making sure I'm on the right area. Or it's hard to do this to me, going back to it. So I go away from it. And like I said, you just go in, blend it. Now if you notice, up here I went a lot lighter and I went a lot more strokes. And what that does is that gives me more base to work with, a base tone or a base value. So we've got this. Now, I want to differentiate in the hair up here. That there is a spot that it mixes. Okay. So okay, and we're going to slightly just blend it out right here. Okay, maybe slightly blend it right here to get the shape of it coming in a little bit more. And there you go. So you have your highlight coming down right here. Hitting here and here. It's not hitting across that bottom. It's hitting that top. And then you can see the hair sort of folding up under. Now this is, like I said, this is the mermaid's hair under the water. So it's flowing out like that. Now if you have hair that's coming down, let me see if, yeah, this is visible for the part that I need. Okay. Let me adjust this slightly. Oops, there we go. Alright, you have your hair here, your outline of your head. So you can tell that the hair is being pulled back. So you want to make sure that it follows the contour of the head. And then in here you can do whatever you want to. Really, it doesn't matter a whole lot. Just leave the area to where when it's coming back out at the back, you can go in and put your tone in. At that point, I'm going to blend it. I'm not going to blend across, I'm blending with it. Okay, now there we go. Let's add our mid-tones. Again, light coming down from this way, so we're going like that. It's hitting this part over here. So what we're going to do is that little technique I just done. We're going to pull in shadow from this area, and then we're going to actually put in shadow here and leave that highlighted area in there. And now we can come back and we can slightly blend that if we want to. We don't have to, but you can slightly blend that. That part, I'm going to add a little bit of darker to the bottom, and then we're going to come back here again with our darkest. Okay, and I'm just trying to get the little bun of the ponytail part here, and there we go. So you might want to You can put in a little bit more like that if you want. And now what you can do with your medium up here is you still have this highlight, but I don't want to mess with that part too much, but certain areas you can sort of darken up with your medium very lightly, pulling that shadow out a little bit more with your as you go through. And then you have a highlight, but you still have the shadows in there, showing that there is texture there, showing that there is a form there. And I believe that is all. I think that is all that I know to tell you about hair. As far as the shapes of hair, look at people and draw shapes until you figure it out. Again, shapes. They make the world go around in drawings. So, for those of you who have asked for a small introductory course to drawing, there's your shapes, how you form shapes, and then here is your hair. I'm going to make one long video of this, and then I'm also going to split this up into a part 1 and part 2 probably. So if you don't see the long video, or you're just seeing the part on the hair, there is a first part out there somewhere probably, unless YouTube is taking it down for some reason. You never know about them, but yeah, I believe this is done. So I hope this has helped. Again, I'm not the best at drawing. These are the techniques I use, and I have been asked several times by several people to please show the techniques that I use to make different things, such as how to draw basic drawing, how to do hair, and to do the shading and stuff like that, to explain it and all of that. So there we go, and I hope to see you later. Hey, I'm Michael. Thank you for watching my video. If you'd like to know or see more, I have links in the description, and I have more video content over here. See you later.